Well, for those of you who were alive in the 70s, you probably remember the Kodak moment. Get your little Eastman Kodak out, or if you were into actually buying film and having a good size 35 millimeter or better, you were lugging a bunch of equipment around looking for opportunities to expand your photographic skills. I certainly was. I had a friend with a dark room, and we actually were
There you
doing
go.
our own color film and color prints, and that was kind of fun for a neophyte. Actually, he was experienced with black and white. I was new to the whole thing.
Right.
But there's a lot to learn about technology today from Kodak. Every one of you watching this, I'm sure, has a smartphone, and it has the death of Kodak built in. It's
It's
because
true.
you can take a picture anywhere you are with your phone, and you do not need to send the film in for processing, and you can make your own prints on your printer once you get back to home.
Right. And like you said, Don, back in the 70s, 1975, Kodak produced the original usable digital camera. They said it was about the size of a toaster, and it recorded the image on a cassette tape. It was insanely crude, but it was all digital. And Kodak's first take on their own on their own research department's digital camera was, that's really interesting. We have no reason for that. Nobody wants to look at camera pictures on a screen. What are we supposed to? That's not part of what. That's really cute. Now
Well,
let's move on to real business. Let's move on to real business, and
let's
that's.
let's move on to our business, which is I'm Don Creech, and you are.
I'm Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources Podcast, which is
uh,
well underway now. Yes.
yeah, well, that's really interesting because here they are with this massive piece of new innovation. Somebody
Right.
made this up out of their brain, God-given talent in an individual human being saying, "Why can't we do this?" And Kodak's management, much like IBM's a couple of decades later,
Same
was,
thing. Absolutely.
but we don't do that. We do this, and if we do that, it'll screw up this, which is what's been paying the bills. What let's not go any further here. And that's the problem that we're facing in today's world of artificial intelligence.
It's true. People are concerned that um, some companies, take Apple for instance, who has mostly tried to do as little as they can get away with AI, and they're mostly in the camp that says it's really interesting. Boy, it's got a lot of cool tricks. It's really not that big a deal. I don't think this is going anywhere. They keep saying to themselves. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is moving ahead as quickly as humanly possible to advance AI. The biggest step forward is to build all these data centers. We need so many more places to process that much data, and that much creativity, that many questions, that much attention to that artificial intelligence world. And Apple's saying, nah, I'm not. I don't think it's that big a deal. We're not really going to check into that. And they're so far behind now. The consensus is all they can do now is make an acquisition. They're going to have to buy an AI company because they are so far behind. They're starting to recognize that even if they're right, even if this is not going to be as big a deal as the rest of the world thinks, everyone sees Apple as a loser here because they are not engaged. And so the optics are so bad that they are going to be forced to do something, whether they want to or not. And that's the reason this Kodak story is important. It's happened time and time again, and time over time. Like you said, Don, the same thing happened to IBM. Bill Gates decided to buy their little program from them and launch Windows, and IBM was, isn't that cute? Nobody needs a computer on their desk. This is Go ahead, go play with that, Bill. See where that gets you. Yeah, well, it did pretty well. They missed it. They missed the disruption, and the disruption that comes through with new technology is what reforms the entire business environment, and that's what's going on with AI right now. So it's one of those things you can watch. You can watch companies and say, you know what? It looks like, Apple's kind of slipping behind here and they're missing it. They're not understanding this is a fundamental change. And even though it may not be fundamental to everyone's needs right now, it's going to be. So
Well,
you
that's
need to
the
be moving now or you're gonna miss out.
so part of the lesson with Kodak is to look at the way some of their competitors, Fuji
Yes.
and Canon, for instance, they were
Yep.
faced with the same problem. What's this deal? But Fuji, on the other hand, kind of isolated that development department and they started organizing their digital services. They
Correct.
ended up dealing with imagery in medical and healthcare, became a very expensive business. They learned how to deal with chemicals on different kinds of surfaces. And while they're at it, somebody said, well, look at these celluloid products that we're generating. And they entered into, they created another division that's in the commodity, yeah, com, the stuff you put on your face, cosmetics,
There we go.
in the cosmetics business. I mean, who'd have thunk it? As the old saying, the old adage, who'd have thunk it? You take a film company and now they're in the cosmetic industry, they're in the healthcare industry. But what they did is they recognized that change is a coming, and maybe we can survive for a while doing things the old way, but we can't survive forever with this new technology. And this actually is one of the reasons that we've introduced new stock portfolios in addition to our ETF portfolios. And that is because in individual stocks, you can hope to find the companies that are aggressively addressing this.
Sure.
And in the funds, whether you use mutual funds or exchange traded funds, it doesn't matter. You are overly diversified to get substantial benefit from these innovative companies. The issue with being in a stock portfolio is you have to do what Kodak did not do, and that is from when you figured out you've made a mistake and the company isn't working, you have to abandon it. The buy and hold mentality of many investors has some significant downside risk when you're dealing with an industrial revolution. And some of these companies that are successful, well known today, are going to do what Kodak and IBM did, saying, oh, no, we're fine. Or Apple, as you just talked about,
Sure.
we're fine. And in this morning's series of emails that I'm reading, Apple announced that they're going to introduce a new AI product on one of their instruments sometime next year. Well, as you said,
Right.
this is way late to the game. I mean,
Good
hey,
luck with
I've got
that.
a
Yeah.
ticket to get in here. Well, we're sorry, Apple, but it's over. There's nobody in the auditorium anymore. That's the problem they're facing.
And it's important to acknowledge how much faster those innovations disrupt entire industries today than they did even when Kodak was there. And it only took Kodak a few years to go from absolute market dominance. They owned the film and the photograph market in the world. That was it. They owned it. Kodak owned the entire market. It all moved to digital. Kodak didn't move with it. And it doesn't matter how big, how powerful, how dominant you are, when the disruption to your industry comes and you ignore it and everything moves away from you, you don't come back from that. You either have to adapt or you go down in flames, which is why, when we're looking at the market in general, when we're looking at things to invest in, we look at who's attracting money. We look at the momentum in the market. Who is it that has the attention of the money? Where's it going? You can follow that, and it's really important, especially today, because it changes very quickly. And it only took a few years for Kodak to go from market dominance to filing bankruptcy because they tried to protect a technology that wasn't worth protecting. No one cared about photographic paper and film cameras anymore. It all changed, and they just stayed where they were and went down in flames. And that's going to happen a great deal. That happens all the time, but it can happen very, very quickly now. The disruption comes quickly. The change comes quickly when an innovation takes hold in an industry. Man, it moves fast, and if you're not staying up with it, like Apple, you're going to have to make an acquisition to try to catch up while trying to look like you're not trying to catch up. Apple's not going out of business today. They've got a massive amount of cash on the sidelines because they're so adverse to making an acquisition. And
They
that's kind of
also
their dilemma.
they also have a very loyal user base.
Very
So
much.
they have phenomenal cash flow coming in, so they can survive a lot of stuff. But at some point in time, the people who are using Apple are going to have too much input from their friends on Android systems saying, well, you mean you can't do this? That role is reversing because for years it was the Apple people saying, you mean you can't do this? Look at this. What do
Right.
you mean you can't do that? And that is going to switch. And when that happens, the Apple people are finally going to say, maybe I'm going to have to learn how to use my Google phone or my Samsung phone or whatever
Right.
my other phone is, but because Apple doesn't do this anymore. They're not there's a point in time where they will not be on the leading edge of what's going on in AI. Well, they already aren't on
They're
the
there.
leading edge of AI. One of the if you the issue of companies going through massive change and it not working out, if you want an
Yep.
example of that, study biotechnology companies. Biotech companies come and go like moths fly into the flame of a fire. I mean, you think you've got a hot idea and you know where you're going, and you run out of money before you get a test that shows viability, and you're
Yep.
praying somebody will buy up your laboratory assets on a discount to get you some sort of financial salvation. When that happens all the time in that industry, but we're going to see it in other industries. Some of the small EV companies are not going to survive.
Right.
Some of them will get bought up because they'll provide some additional production capacity for one of the companies that does survive. But you look at even Tesla is not a car company. It's known for being the dominant EV maker,
Right.
but its future is not in cars. Elon Musk says so himself. It's in his development of robotics and space technology. I mean, there's other things that he's focused on that will be the future of Tesla rather than the car. So there's an individual who recognizes the future is different than the past. That's what's important when you're
Sure.
dealing with individual stock accounts rather than saying, well, this company has paid dividends to me for 25 years and never missed a payment.
Yep.
That may be true. And if cash flow is your only requirement, well, then welcome to the rising dividend portfolio. But you want to know where growing your portfolio so you have a larger capital base is. It's probably not in the company that's spending its money to keep you from selling its stock, but in the company that's spending a good portion of money that Apple isn't in acquisitions and R&D work. We're in a new bull market generated by a new industrial revolution, the likes of which we have not seen in our lifetimes, but have the beneficiaries of the tail end of the last industrial revolution and the post World War II development of what was learned in fighting that war. It's kind of
Right.
like what was learned by landing on the moon. I mean, even within months ago, my wife said, "So what was the big deal with the moon? We spent a ton of money on it." I said, "Yeah, but look at what we got out of it. Tang. We don't drink Tang anymore." Say, look at the microwave. You use the microwave all the time. Without the space race, that may never have been developed or years later before somebody came up with the idea. It
Yep.
was forced upon us because of the need to innovate. And that's what AI is doing to virtually every other industry that we look at when we deal with the stock market. 11 major sectors, and every industry has companies that will ignore the changes that are standing right in front of them, like Kodak did and IBM did.
And it's not a matter of knowing right now exactly how it's going to shake out and exactly who the winners and losers are going to be. It's about recognizing across the board that AI needs to be part of your vision for the future because it is moving so quickly. And it is becoming integrated so quickly into the very fabric that businesses run on. And so it needs to be part of what you're doing going forward. And you can figure out the rest along the way. Everyone's going to have to do the same thing. That's what happens when you have a new technology, a new innovative sector. And that's where it is with AI. It'll be interesting to see if Apple can catch up. I have no doubt they can. They're just going to have to make some strategic changes in their outlook and go out and make some acquisitions that they really hate. Their last large acquisition was Beats Headphones. They spent $3 billion making a massive, the largest acquisition they've ever made. That's like one round of funding in the AI industry right now. They're just way behind in an order of magnitude for how much of a change this is coming, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can catch up.
We are a registered investment advisor. We are fiduciaries in every engagement we have with clients. If you want to talk to us about our exchange traded fund portfolio strategy or our newly introduced stock portfolio strategies, where we focus on these innovation going on with individual companies, give us a call. Contact information is on the screen. Subscribe. Be sure you don't miss out on our next podcast. And have a great day. Thanks for being with us today.